Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Each week, we hear real time stories from athletes and CEOs on how to maximize performance through an endurance mindset. Let's get started. Well, welcome to the show. Today, we've got a brilliant and resilient entrepreneur whose journey is as inspiring as it is unconventional. He has an academic background in organizational psychology, conducted research in several national labs, has been published work in biometric, and has also spent time at Harvard studying the human evolutionary biology. He's designed his first bike saddle in 2015, and by 2022, had started his own company. Please welcome the founder of Wove. Hey, Nick, it's great to have you on the show.
Hey, thank you, Greg. I appreciate this.
I'm really excited to get into the content and to talk about your saddle. But before we do that, Nick, I'd love to know how your endurance mindset has impacted your life unexpectedly.
I guess the primary thing people think about persistence primarily, but I think for myself, my endurance mindset is an ability to focus. And I guess a technical term for that would be like monotropic. A monotropic sort of focus is just honed in on a singular task. Some people have even called that singularity. And and I think that's been quite a boon for myself because I set out on an obsession with bicycle saddles and producing bicycle saddles, and that has not wavered. No matter what's going on in my personal life, the work gets done for my company, and so I think that's been absolutely necessary. You, yeah, because in any sort of entrepreneurship venture, if you want it to scale, you cannot lose focus or let your attention deviate.
That's 100% correct. And it's almost to a point, like for me, it's that intersection between sort of focus and passion. And it gets really blurred in the middle of like, am I doing this because I'm just doing it because it's me and I'm determined? Or is it because there's a higher purpose and passion? So as an entrepreneur, a fellow entrepreneur, the question comes up of how do you handle working with other entrepreneurs that are extremely distracted, right? Like I open up my email this morning and there's a new idea that I think I should go chase, and I'm going to go chase that for a few minutes. And then I'm into chat GPT and I'm going to chase a different idea. And next thing you know, it's this, and it's very easy to get distracted. And clearly you don't have that disadvantage, but many entrepreneurs and people that you partner with or people that you team up with probably do. And I'm curious, Nick, how have you sort of handled that dynamic of you being laser focused and somebody you're relying on to produce a design or come up with a manufacturing strategy is a little bit more loosey goosey or a little bit more distracting?
Yeah. So, I did a lot of the heavy lifting on the front end in terms of choosing who I was working with. And the first person was David Simmons, who makes custom carbon fiber shoes. His shoes are used by most of the Olympic track cycling teams in the world, like British cycling, New Zealand, Germany. They're 100% custom molded to your feet. And so we started working together, and we really hit it off because we had that laser focus. We could focus on buckle systems for the Olympic shoes that were going to be used by the British cycling team. And then 2015, I came to him with a saddle design. I've been obsessed with saddles since the late 90s for comfort reasons primarily. I mean, I had the first body geometry saddle that Andy Pruitt designed for Specialized, the first ISM in 2008, the first Dash saddle 2009, and everything in between. Just obsessed with bike saddles for comfort and performance reasons. And so I decided, okay, I need to make my own design. Like the Dash just wasn't cutting it. None of the other designs were cutting it. The new Specialized power saddle was not cutting it. And so it just didn't have enough soft tissue pressure relief. It hit the back of the thighs. It just wasn't doing, and it wasn't allowing myself or other, I do a lot of bike fits. I've done well over 4,000 bike fits in my lifetime. I do bike fits every week. And so I don't have a studio at this point, but I just help my customers and my pro athletes. So most of the pro athletes you see on Wove are being bike fit by me also. And so, decided like, okay, if I want to put the rider into the right position where they can put out the most power comfortably, I need to make my own saddles. So in 2015, he made the first saddle. it was out of a need because no other saddles were providing the soft tissue relief, the thigh clearance, or the ability to get in the right position. So like worked with quite a bit of pro athletes who just having a hard time getting them in the right position. So made my own saddle in 2015, and he and I communicated pretty much 7 days a week all the way through 2024. And so that's 9 years of just every day, just chipping away at it, from the shape to the foams to the cover materials. So that's an example of, on the front end, choosing people to work with who have that focus. I've definitely had people in the past in other ventures, corporate spaces, academic spaces, who just have a hard time staying focused. And I don't have people coming to me with bright, shiny object ideas like, oh, look, let's maybe do this. Like every now and then someone does it. I know how much work goes in to scaling a good idea. And it's almost like, so okay, I want to make sure my story is linear, but I'll say, so the other people on my team, like Matthew Valancourt, who's my head of
Yeah.
marketing, laser focus, um, but I was recently down in California, and I have a mentee who I helped her through high school. And actually, so I have two mentees that are at Caltech right now, obviously very demanding school. And she was talking to me about, so she's focusing on startups. So we talk about business and startups, and she's in the biomedical space. And she has people coming to her, like she'll have friends in college being like, let's do this idea, and they get really excited. And she's at the young age of 19, 20 years old, she's seeing, wow, like it's almost as if the more excitement she's approached with, the less likely they are to be able to carry on the idea. And I was joking with her saying that, well, it's kind of like dating,
Fascinating.
right? If you meet someone in the first 2 weeks of dating, they're over the moon about you. That that might be a red flag. And that goes back to the prior conversation about the emotional capabilities that are absolutely required to focus. The fa- the father of modern psychology, William James, says the greatest human capability is the ability to focus. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
100%. Yeah, and you're really brightening up a light bulb for me. Like when I've done my best work, it's when I'm laser focused. It's when on this podcast is an example of that. Like I love doing this and I get into it, and the research and the preparation and the rest of it. Um, you made me think about something as you were talking about developing the designs, working with David for those 9 years, tinkering away at your passion. And the light bulb that came on for me when you were talking about that is, as an amateur, and many of our listeners are, like, we're sort of, at least I am a back of the pack sort of triathlon finisher. I get the most out of my day and I love it. But I haven't really thought much about my saddle other
Yeah.
than it hurts eventually. Um, and so my question for you is like, as an amateur, what should we be thinking about when it comes to like, you go to the bike shop, you buy your bike, maybe you're working with a coach, you definitely get a fit, you get the geometry right. Um, but what other things should we be considering as sort of, an amateur cyclist, amateur triathlete when, considering which
Um,
saddle to put on our bike?
Great question. And so coming from a bike fit background, when I've, I viewed the saddle as the starting place. And so often, it was very rare that someone comes in and I see them just in a good position on the saddle, because they're often, people are often fighting their saddle where they're posteriorly rotating their hips rearwards to get off the soft tissue pressure. They're dealing with thigh rubbing. They're putting themselves in compromised positions and hurting their lower backs. because of the saddle. So the first thing is like, well, I would rotate someone through like 5 to 8 saddles blindly. And I would go through like, five rounds. In each round, I'd be pulling out saddles. And as the person goes through, they're going to self-select and say, ooh, that doesn't feel good. So first, if you're an amateur athlete, you should work with a fitter that's going to do blind testing and say, okay, we're going to rotate through these 5 saddles that I think will work for you. You're not going to look at the saddle. And by the second time you're going through, you're going to tell me what does not feel good. The first time, most people are going to say, I guess this feels okay. The second time, they're going to have frames of reference and people are going to say, oh, that does not feel good.
Mm.
So I think just getting that education and going into the fitter and doing that, finding a fitter that views that as an absolute necessity and the best use of time and knows how to set up the angle of the saddle. So that's needed. And then what are you going to be feeling? Soft tissue pressure. As you rotate through different saddles, you're going to see that some saddles cause a lot of pressure, in your soft tissue region. That's male or female. And then from there, you're going to have bone pressure. Sometimes some saddles are so hard, they cause pain along the bones. Other saddles cause comfort along the bones. And then the other ones are going to be, is the rear of your hamstring hitting the wings of the saddle? Or your thighs hitting the nose of the saddle? Does the fitter know how to set you up on the saddle so that if you are getting rubbing, can they position the saddle so the rubbing goes away? And then is it even possible, or do you need to go to a new saddle to make that happen? So yeah, those are things to think about.
That's super helpful. And the next question, that the follow on for that, is how often do you change saddles? Like I've been
Mhm.
riding my same saddle for 10 years. It's been through a handful of Ironman races. If I sent you a
Yeah.
picture, you'd probably be ashamed of it. But one, technology's changed for sure. But two, as I've aged 10 years, I'm sure my body composition's changed and, et cetera, et cetera. So as a rule of thumb, is there a rule of thumb of like how often should you consider changing your saddle, redoing a bike fit, those types of things?
So changing to a new model or changing that specific one saddle?
I guess either. Like, I guess how often should I be thinking about, you know what, this has been 5 years on this saddle. Maybe I should
Yeah.
see what else is out there or see, does it still fit the right way or is it still fitting, producing what it was producing for me 5 years
So with
ago?
your specific saddle, let's say you're on one model, you should be watching to see if the foam is compressing, if it's getting like sort of bottoming out too quickly, if the saddle's starting to sag in the middle. I'll say that with our saddles, we offer after like you can within the first year it's free to replace the foam. You just mail the saddle back in, we replace the foam, and after the first year it's only $100 to replace the foam. So you should keep an eye on the foam. Like our foam lasts about 15,000 miles. So for most people that'll
Mm.
last 1 to 2 years, depending how much you're riding, and then or more. And so you replace the foam. But as far as the model of saddle, um, we are seeing different models of saddles coming out. For example, this past year, Ergon put out 2 models of saddles that look really awesome. They're not perfect, but they're really awesome. And I would say go down to your bike fitter and say, hey, I want to rotate through my current saddle and these new models of saddle and to see what might feel different. Um, I mean, that's the sort of thing that I wouldn't even charge for a full bike fit for because it's just giving someone that opportunity to rotate through and see. And we've seen other models. Physique put out a new triathlon saddle last year. It's not getting a lot of attention, but it's the sort of thing where if I were an athlete, I would say, okay, how does that feel? I want to jump on that. Or obviously, there are my saddles with Wove, and I say go down to your bike fitter and see if you can try a Wove saddle and rotate through the different models. And we also have a 30-day no questions asked return policy, and some other companies do too. And it's like, well, then that's pretty risk free. Sure, you pay the cost up front, you try it. If it doesn't work, you return it, you get a full refund. So, so there's enough options out there that when you see something pop up on the market, you can say, well, I am experiencing a little bit of soft tissue pressure, or I am experiencing some bone discomfort. Let me see if there's another model that might help relieve that. So.
That's super helpful. And Nick, what it made me think of when you're talking about bike fittings is the question between an in-person bike fitting and a virtual, like I'm thinking about my shop, who I love, the Bike Lane here in Reston, Virginia, and they've been great to me over the years. But if I want to go see the bike fitter, right, it's a 45-day, 30-day,
Yeah.
45-day scheduling commitment because they're just that good and that busy. Where the virtual option, right, is almost instantaneous if I've got a good virtual bike fitter.
So, couple things. I The greatest advantage to in person is being able to try different equipment. You're not going to get that virtually, unless you order everything yourself. And the great thing is about,
Good
like,
point.
when I've had my own fit studios, I would have 20 saddles or more on the wall. So I could just pull from all. I mean, obviously, I've been obsessed with saddles. So when I was, in New York or in Boston, I had my own fit studios and I could just pull from the wall all these different saddles. So that's an advantage of in person. It's also worth trying to. So this is to anyone listening. I would try to convince your fitter to say, "Hey, I'm not needing a full bike fit. All I need to do is rotate through 5 saddles." As a bike fitter, I can get that done in 30
Mm.
minutes. If I say, "Well, if that's all you're needing, then that's not a full bike fit." Like, I'm going to squeeze people in because let's just be honest, I'm probably going to sell a bike saddle that day. And it's like, okay, and I'm going to get a lifelong customer that's going to buy other stuff. I mean, it's just business. It's good business. And so, everyone has their prerogative, how they want to run their business. But I can say, from someone who would very often do 6 bike fits a day and had huge demand, um, there's no way I would ever schedule anyone out that far out in advance. I would get them in. Um, so that's just me. And everyone
Yeah.
has their own prerogative how they want to run their business, but I wanted to make money, and so I was going to get people in. Right now, I'll say, in terms of the virtual stuff, a lot of our customers will send me videos over WhatsApp. And a lot of our pros. Now, I work with our pros in person. I was over at Rudy Von Berg's house last night, for example. That's a very common thing. I'm meeting up with Rant Kuntz later today. He's an Olympic track cyclist and went to the last Olympics. And I work with those guys in person. But honestly, even if they're here in Boulder, so often I prefer they just send me a video because I can put it in slow motion. And it's in I need to go through in slow motion and
Mm.
dissect things. I personally find that I don't need Retool or other I can just put a video over WhatsApp in slow motion. I mean, I save it to my iPhone so I can go, like, 60 frames per second, but I go 60 frames per second and just dissect. And what's nice about that, okay, actually, I'm gonna expand this conversation one step further. So if money were no object and you had to choose 2 types of physicians, one physician is the guy who's running a good business model. You're going to go in there and you're going to talk to him, and he's probably only going to visit with you for 15 minutes, right? You're going to schedule out a month ahead of
Right.
time. You're going to get 15 minutes, but you're having some kind of mysterious symptoms, not unlike bike saddle issues. Like, man, like I'm having this discomfort. I can't put it into words. Well, you're going to get 15 minutes with that physician. So that's physician A. And he's going to see you for 15 minutes and he's going to use his wealth of knowledge to diagnose you. Then you have physician B. Physician B follows you around 7 days a week for multiple hours a day with a clipboard, taking notes and observing you for months at a time. Now that guy's going to go out of business real quick. But if money were no object, which of those 2 physicians are you going to choose?
Yeah. Obviously, physician B.
That's why I no longer have a fit studio. It's like, I don't want to be physician A anymore. I, I, so what a
Mm.
lot of my pro athletes, they're just sending me videos, sometimes 3, 4, 5 times a week. But the thing is that, like, I can spot it. Having done so many bike fits since the mid 90s, I can spot their issues so quickly. It's like, okay, let's make this change. Let's make this change. Let's, let's just, let's go on. Actually, with my own fit studio in New York, I would actually so often require people to go on a bike ride with me, and I'd bring my tools and we'd be stop, go outdoors. Like, fine. And that's how it is here in Boulder with the pro athletes. So often it's like, okay, we've done everything we can indoors. Now let's head outdoors, you know? Or you go outdoors and get someone to
Sure.
videotape you, and like 3 hours into a ride at race power, let's see, or in a race. Okay, you're doing Ironman Frankfurt. Let's get some video footage of you in the race so I can look at how you actually look in a race, not indoors on a trainer in a studio. And so a lot of this is said, this isn't a critique of the bike fitters. This is saying, hey, you can actually probably do shorter bike fits more often. And that's just going to
Right.
keep those
Right.
customers coming back into your store.
100%. And it's really well said between, the comparison between physician A and physician B. And you're right. Like you do race differently than you train. And even if you're training outdoors for a long ride, like when you're and I noticed it in my heart rate. Right? I was talking to my coach after Chattanooga a few months ago, and I was like, yeah, the goal was X heart rate, and I was X plus 10. And I think it's just
Oh,
the excitement of race day. And to your point, I suspect that relates to how you sit on your bike and how you're in your aero and how like your body position and how do you deal with, cyclists near you versus just being out on open roads. So like the points you're making are really insightful, um, and worth considering for the audience members.
I mean, we have athletes right now in the women's Giro d'Italia, and you better believe that, like, they just did a time trial. And what do? I get a hold of their team. I'm like, I need some video footage. Let's look at how they actually look on race day in the race, and then we're going to make some tweaks to their bike fit based off of that.
That's awesome. So Nick, I'm so curious, like when did this obsession with saddles happen? Were you obsessed with saddles and then you had studios, or did you start your studios and then you realized that there was that one key component, like where it all starts to the point you made earlier in the show? Like, what was the sequence of getting you to where you are today?
Just out of, there are so many people that can relate to this, but just buying like 5+ saddles a year, looking for the right one. That I mean, that for me, that began in 1998, probably,
Yeah.
like I just, I just couldn't find something, and I just couldn't believe that discomfort was the path forward, and then like in 2001, um, I'd been working at Oak Ridge National Labs, decided to leave, and I moved out to Boulder, and I lived with some Olympic cyclists. And you better believe I asked them, I was like, "So, what are you doing for saddle discomfort? Because you guys are riding 6 days a week, 5 hours a day." Um, and they're like, "Oh, there's no issue." But then, like, later that year, I asked the question again, and I got the honest answer. And what the honest answer was, after 90 minutes, I go numb.
Hmm.
And I said, "No way in hell is that gonna be my reality." Like, and then luckily, it was right around that time that, Andy Pruitt released the very first body geometry saddle, and that was a life changer for me. I mean, it weighed, oh my god, that thing had to have weighed 600 grams. It was insane. And just to give you reference, my current road saddles that I make weigh under 125 grams. So, it was a boat anchor, but I was like, "I don't," and I'm a weight weenie, but I
Wow.
said, "I don't care." This thing, I mean, it changed how I could ride. I mean, once I tossed that thing on, I could start, heck, I had weeks, around 40 hours on the bike, and that just wasn't gonna be possible with another saddle. So that gets into the relationship between saddle and performance. You can ride more, you can put yourself in a more powerful position, um, and you can focus. Going back to focus, you can focus on the task at hand, which is riding, not discomfort.
Yeah, not squirming around in your saddle trying to find the right spot for that particular climb or that particular push or um so Nick, I'm going to change topics on you slightly and I'd love to know a little bit about the business side. Like where is Wove in its life cycle?
We are at a critical juncture. You know, I'd say, so my doctoral training was in organizational behavior, and organizational behavior splits itself between the org psych side of things, organizational psychology, which is more my focus, and then strategic management. So I can speak to strategic management quite a bit from that doctoral training, even though it's not my specialty, but it is my lived experience every day with this business. From a strategic standpoint, you're constantly finding yourself where you either need more demand or you have too much demand and you need more product,
Mhm.
and we're constantly fluctuating. And for the last year, we've been in so in the first between we started shipping in 2022. So the end of 2022 and all of 2023 and all of 2024, we were in a position to where way too much demand, not enough product. So we switched to a new manufacturer down in Mexico. Great capabilities, but I'll be candid, we are battling with quality control issues. Where when David Simmons only made 6 saddles a week, quality control was easier because, I mean, the reality is in his own words, to get the foam perfect, each saddle, he probably had to strip the foam off and refoam it again 3 to 4 times per saddle. And that's why our capacity was 6 saddles a week.
Wow.
So now that we're able to produce 200 saddles a week, that is, and our saddle is very complex, a lot of trade secrets. Our shell and rails are all one piece of carbon fiber molded at the same time. That's what makes it so strong and so light. Our saddles have been tested at 320 pounds. So they get like there's a weight that presses on it 200,000 times, and we've done it at 320 pounds, which surpasses industry standards by 100 pounds. So it's very strong, very light, and the foam is attached in a very unique manner. All this stuff together makes manufacturing very difficult. We could have gone the easy path and just gone to Taiwan, called up Velo. Everyone knows the owner, Starla Velo, and just like, hey, let's make my saddle for me. And they would have said, sure, but we're going to use our manufacturing methods. And that just wouldn't have worked for us. It would have been heavy. We would have got the shape correct. The foam, we would have had to use their foam. Not like we tested hundreds of
Mm.
foams, probably more like thousands, not kidding. And, so coming back, so where we are as a company is we are scaling. And, John List, the economist at University of Chicago, he wrote a brilliant book a couple of years ago called The Voltage Effect: Why Some Ideas Scale and Some Ideas Don't. And he's been he was the chief economist, on staff economist at Uber for a while now. He's at Lyft. And yeah, he talks about the problems that companies face when they're trying to scale. And we're facing those. Like, we have to get our quality control where it needs to be so that every saddle that's delivered to us is perfect. But the reality is that our demand is so huge. I mean, right now, today, I have 300 saddles in the queue, 350 saddles in the queue that need to be delivered. And if we get a batch of saddles, 100 saddles that arrive in the mail today, and only 70% of them are hitting QC, that means we're not shipping to our customers that are waiting, and we don't have product on the shelves like we need to, which in the next month we should.
Yeah.
But, and then we'll have product on the shelves. And then when someone places an order, boom, it ships because it's on the shelf. But then we're in a situation to where we need to increase demand because we'll have too much product sitting on the shelf. So we need our inventory turnover ratio to be better. So it's always that balance, right? But that's where it's a good place to be if our manufacturing can meet our goals. And then I mean, just super candid, super vulnerable and honest, but it's,
Sure.
Elon Musk has been quoted as saying that, when he made the first batch of Teslas, that was easy. When he tried to scale, he was like, holy God, this is the hardest thing. Like making one rocket for SpaceX, that he said, as crazy as that is, he said, repeatability, which is your reliability in statistics, your reliability of getting the consistent result every single time. That's the that's the hardest business to go into. So
That's right. Well, and that's what made the difference for McDonald's, and not using them as an example on a fitness podcast, but right, their breakthrough was that repeatability, and it's like anywhere in the world you'd go and experience whatever they're making, it's going to be a similar experience. And they
yeah,
spent decades and decades and decades figuring out that process.
yeah. Sam Long loves McDonald's, so I'm not going to throw them under the bus. And I will say, just to toss it, like that's, yeah, you get, obviously there's that well-known book, The E-Myth, with the entrepreneurship myth that came
Mm-hmm.
out, like, 20 years ago or more. And that's the whole thing is like, if you can have an idea that can be reliably repeatable, that's your ticket. So the customer has a consistent experience. But the reality is, in his own words, most entrepreneurs don't know how to delegate, and they don't have the focus of attention, and they start juggling balls, and then they start juggling, next thing you know, they're juggling 6 balls at a time, and balls start dropping and hitting the ground, and that's why businesses don't succeed. So, yeah.
That's right. And it goes back to the point we started on when we're talking about focus, right? And how critical that is on your entrepreneurial journey, and having that passion, and following through, and not getting distracted by the new shiny thing that's coming across your desk on a Tuesday morning. Um, so Nick, not to fill your queue anymore, but how can an audience member find your products? Clearly, give us your website. What's the best path to securing securing one of your saddles?
So, both our website and our Instagram, is just the one word, Wove Bike. So WOVEBIKE. So whether that's .com or Instagram /Wove Bike. Yeah, so you go there, you'll learn. We have lots of educational stuff, learning about us, and we are available. We provide amazing customer service. One way we are doing so well with customers that have been waiting months on saddles is we provide exceptional customer service, and we go above and beyond. We reply instantly. We take care of people, and and that's, obviously we need our quality control to get to where it needs to be, so that we're not so reliant on customer service, the good experience. But yeah, so anyway, so that's how people can learn about us. They can find us. A lot of people have already heard about us because the pro athletes that are on our saddles. Obviously, we have people like Christian Blumenfeld, Lucy Charles Barclay, Sam Long, Rudy Von Berg, Joe Skipper, Braden Curry, Magnus Dietliff. I, Yes, we have a lot of triathletes. And we have, Ruth Edwards, she's the leader of a world tour team with the Giro d'Italia right now on our saddle. We have pro gravel cyclist Rosa Closer, who won Unbound last year. So I can go down the list. So, and it's interesting is all those pros are approaching us.
Yeah,
They're coming to us, and then they're like, "Wow, we love this saddle." So,
that is a real vote of confidence, and impressive. Nick, keep up the great work. I loved your story, your passion, your focus on this. I'm going to have a deep conversation with my saddle in about 20 minutes. Audience members, if you got some value out of today's show, please please subscribe. Let's share this with our community. Let's spread the word about Wove and what Nick and his team have created. Um, and ultimately, from the bottom of my heart, Nick, thank you for solving a problem that so many of us have to deal with. That 90-minute mark when the numbness kicks in. I guess that doesn't need to be lived anymore. And I look forward to experiencing that one day.
well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and let's get you a saddle.
Yes, please. Thank you for tuning in to the Chief Endurance Officer podcast. To hear more inspiring stories and strategies around the endurance mindset, be sure to subscribe below or visit us at chiefenduranceofficer.com. Until next time, keep pushing those limits.